Now, Nigerian authorities say that they've rescued 187 people who've been abducted by armed gangs in the northwestern state of Zamfara. This after police launched a sweeping security operation against the kidnappers. Since December last year, Zamfara has been the center of often violent kidnappings by heavily armed bandits who have been targeting schools, villages and people traveling on highways for ransom. The government last month shut telecommunication services in Zamfara and other states to disrupt the coordination amongst the gangs. Armed gangs have grown bolder over time, attacking army outposts, breaking prisoners out of jail and shooting down an Air Force jet in July. Authorities in neighbouring states have complained that bandits have driven out of Zamfara, have now poured into their territories and are now causing havoc there. Kabir Adamu is a security risk management expert and the MD at Beacon Consulting. He joins us now via Zoom from Abuja in Nigeria. Thanks very much indeed for joining us and welcome to the program.
Thank you, Peter. Good evening.
All right, it's very difficult at this time to figure out what is a genuine rescue mission and what means sometimes that ransom has been paid and that actually this is a release.
So exactly, this is one of the concerns that we had when the extraordinary measures were imposed in Zamfara and 3 other states. The blank distortion of this information that frankly you have no other way of verifying. So it's not clear, for instance, when the police say they've rescued this 187 persons, whether these were people that were released by the bandits or in actual sense the rescue did take place. And if at all it did take place, the police never presented any facts in support of that it was a rescue. The second element is, who are these people in reality? We were told that they were abductees from 3 local governments. Now, the reality is that those 3 local governments are hotspots for abduction, but there is no corroboration on when they were abducted, who their family members are, or if at all they are not even family members of the bandits. And so this kind of questions, unfortunately, have arisen since the announcement was made by the police.
So in this rescue operation, have the bandits been captured? Are they arrested? Do we have any details about who these people are?
So not in this particular instance. The police did not provide information regarding which particular bandit group abducted these persons. Again, remember I said these are persons from 3 local governments. So it appears it's a series of operations that led to this revelation, as it were. However, in the past, several bandits, commanders have been arrested and names have emerged, indicating, for instance, or claims by the police that these are bandit leaders. Again, I would like to emphasize that there is no independent way of corroborating this information by the police at the moment, mainly because of the extraordinary measures in place at in these locations. It prevents journalists, it prevents security analysts like myself from using independent sources to verify these claims. So again, the third element to this is the allegation that human rights abuses, unfortunately, have been perpetrated in the course of these operations, and that makes a lot of concern. You can see the way these people are looking, and you can imagine the fact that the police did actually hold a press briefing while these people were in this type of conditions. One would have thought the immediate requirement would have been medical and perhaps even for basic needs like food, as against the desire to have a press briefing in the moment.
Conventional wisdom has often suggested that there is help and collusion from people in high places for this industry, because that really is what it seems like.
Yeah, so each state or each location would have to be analyzed on its own. And in the case of Zamfara that we're reporting on, yes, just to give a little background on the state, during the last election, which was in 2019, the party that won the elections failed in certain criteria for the election. And so the courts ruled against that party. And so it was the runner-up party that eventually emerged as the governing party. And the huge gap between the first winner and then this one is almost over 400,000 votes. And so there is that speculation, perhaps even there is some political incentive for the types of violence we're seeing in the state. The second element is the abundance of natural resources, such as gold in the state. And because of this abundance, there is a suggestion that perhaps certain players, including both politicians and other financiers, are interested in taking hold of land, and so that they can exploit this gold without any government interference. And so it suggested that perhaps the banditry too has an element of that. And then, of course, the third element is the possibility that these bandits are coming in from across the border, especially from Niger and even further up the Sahel. And because of the porous border around states like Zamfara and Katsina, it's very easy for them to crisscross and commit this type of atrocities. And whenever there are security operations like the type we're seeing at the moment, they go back into hiding, sometimes in forested parts that are so-called ungoverned spaces at the moment, or back into the Nigerian territory and back into Nigeria. So it's a combination of several factors, unfortunately.
As you say, each state has to be looked for its own merits, but it does sound, when you take 187 people, it does sound as a high level of organization and preparation before and after, because these people have to be sheltered and also fed for those weeks.
Exactly, and I think from the point of view of both an intelligence analyst and an outsider, it sounds almost impossible that something like that could happen. But I made the point around ungoverned spaces. So these are forests that straddle about 5 states inside Nigeria, and in some instances reach as far as Niger and even Cameroon Republic. So this spaces are really ungoverned, like they are called. There is very minimal government presence in them, and these bandits have found safe havens in them, and that's where they are able to keep these numbers of persons. But then even beyond that, they just can't keep them because they need supplies to keep them alive, to feed them, and several other things. So the questions have arisen. How come the security agencies, especially the intelligence agencies, have not been able to identify, the supply channels for these basic needs that these people have? So there's definitely a failure of intelligence, and more importantly, the inability of the authorities, as it were. I don't want to use the word government because it sends the wrong message of the authorities to identify these ungoverned spaces as well as the supply chains that are feeding the whole industry. It becomes a bit complex because the Nigerian constitution puts responsibility for these spaces, this forest, in the hands of the state. But then the constitution puts responsibility for security on the federal government. So it's a bit complex, and there is the absence of coordination between these two levels of government in terms of how they are going to deal with these ungoverned spaces has created the lacuna at the moment, unfortunately.
Is it a sign of the escalation that, a few years ago when the Chibok girls were abducted, the whole world literally came to a standstill watching this story unfold, and that now so many children, people are being abducted that it hardly gets a mention anymore?
Yeah. It's we call it risk habituation, in security risk management balance, where those that are living within environments that have high threat levels sometimes, unfortunately, learn to live with that. Clearly, some parts of Nigeria are experiencing that. The other component is the frustration with which the residents kind of living their lives. I just mentioned in your opening report, you indicated that telecommunication channels have been disrupted. Now, this is going on for about a month, and this have affected significantly the livelihoods. But frankly, they folded their hands and they are waiting on government with no palliative measures in place. So yes, there is a level of acceptance, to an extent docility by residents, and unfortunately, the components of government that should have looked at that, and I'm speaking specifically at the state assemblies, the legislative arm of government in the states, that should have addressed this, because the laws were passed by the executive arm. So the legislative arms of government should have come in to put forward palliative measures or ask critical questions regarding the legality of those actions, but nothing like that has been done. So there is an element of docility, there is an element of resignation, and then unfortunately, even the level of education in those locations is a contributory factor.
Kabir, Adamu, we're going to have to leave it there, but always good talking to you. Thank you so much indeed for joining us and giving us an update on the situation in Nigeria. Thank you so much.
A pleasure.